Have you been blessed so far?
Amen.
Okay, so well, I'm just asking you to indulge me just for a little bit longer so that, I can share the message that God has laid upon my heart today. Now, as you know, I'm not a preacher, so I'll be just saying what the Lord has told me. So, I want to thank Sister Ambrose and her team for the invitation, as well as Pastor Marsden for allowing me to use this pulpit today. But more than all, I want to thank God for the humbling opportunity to minister today in this part of His faith. Now, I recently discovered that Fayetteville has a very interesting and diverse demographic. And each segment is special to me in one way or another. Now, if you're a teacher, you are very special, because guess what? So this past week, from Monday to Friday, was Teachers Appreciation Week. And you're not only special in that regard, but my brother in Jamaica is a principal, and it's two very dear people in my life. They were educators too. They're like my second parents. Now, if you're a nurse, you are special, because I am a nurse too, but you have done so much that yesterday was Nurses Day, and the coming week up through Thursday, you will be celebrated as well. And if you're a soldier or have been, you are very special, because I have family members who have been soldiers and many friends, but you are special because of the awesome task you have to serve and protect your country. So thank you, you are special. So shifting the gears a little bit, if you're from the Caribbean, you're special, because I'm from the Caribbean too. If you are from Korea, you are special, because guess what? 10 of the amazing 21 staff members at work are Koreans. Beautiful. If you are an American citizen by birth or naturalization, you are special, because I'm a naturalized citizen too. Now, if you are an immigrant from anywhere else, and I didn't mention the country, you are special, because I'm an immigrant too. And if you are a retiree, you are special, because when I grow up, I want to be just like you. But as special as you all are, with a different group of special people that got me to take my first trip since the pandemic, are amazing mothers. And so, this is a group that is all-inclusive, because if you haven't had a mother, or you have a mother, you're either planning to be a mother, or you either you are a mother by birth, adoption, or obligation. Since things happen, a parent might have died or traveled away as an older sibling, you have to raise your younger siblings. So today, everybody fits into that group of special people. Okay, so over the next few minutes, I'll be speaking on the topic, Mothers, God's Angels on Earth. Let us pray. Dear Father, like that flask that floated on the water just now, I come before Thee. Fill me only with the word from Thee. Put a life quote from your altar upon my lips, that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart will be acceptable in your sight. Amen. Okay, so God's special angels on earth. Okay, so let us establish a common understanding. Let us define some key words. And first one is mother. What does the word mother mean? Being a source of origin, used as a title of a woman, respected for her wisdom and age, a female ancestor, the female parent of an animal or plant, a woman who gave birth or who has responsibility for the physical or emotional care of specific children, a woman who raises a child, a woman who adopts a child. So what do you think we learn from that? A mother does not necessarily have to be a woman who gave birth. There are so many great mothers who never gave birth. Okay, so let's look at the word motherhood. Now, according to the dictionary, motherhood is a state of being a mother. It goes on to say that a person enters motherhood when they become a mother. This most commonly happens when their child is born, but it can also happen through adoption or by marrying or becoming a partner to someone with children. Motherhood is a gender-specific version of the term parenthood. Now, what are some of the attributes of mothers? Let's look at a few of them. Loving, nurturing, caring, protective, patient, humble, supportive, loyal, strong. Just to name a few. Now, where's an angel? We use the word loosely, but let's see what the dictionary says. It says an angel is a spiritual being, especially as a messenger, a spiritual being serving God, especially as a messenger, or a person who is very good, kind, or beautiful. Now, in a little while, we'll be looking at some of the great resources that are available to us, but I would like to share the responses of a few individuals that I recently asked about their experience and insights of motherhood. Now, one mother said, "Motherhood is a highlight of my life, not my career. Things have not always been linear. There have been hills and valleys, but more hills than valleys. I praise God for using my brokenness to making something decent out of it. When I look at my children, I see how they love Jesus, and the thought comes to my mind, if you honor Jesus, he will honor you. I have been so blessed, not in a material way. My children are good citizens. When I see them raising their children, and they do certain things, I ask them, where did they learn that? They would say, from you and Dad. They are raising their children to be kingdom children. I am blessed and a kept mother." Can anyone relate to that? Another mother said that this generation thinks that they can do mothering alone. I can't imagine what mothering would be like without my husband. There are some people who just need a child because they're getting up in age and they have the money to take care of a child. But children need more than just money and the support of a mother. God made Adam and Eve, and together they raised their children. Children look at both parents as one, but they provide different services. Mothering doesn't mean that children come home and grab the food and go to their rooms. They're supposed to be involved in the preparation of the meal. They sit together at the table with the parents and have a meal and talk about their day. When there's a breakdown in communication, there will be a breakdown in other areas. Children are supposed to be involved in grocery shopping too, as this is training for them. My children's household reflect the training they received. Another mother said, when I think of motherhood, love, tenderness, and affection first come to my mind, then correction. I had the most wonderful, caring, and loving mother who has left an indelible mark in my life. It is mostly from her life and influence that I have gained. Since I became a mother, in my feeble mind, I understand a little of God's unconditional love. This involves mercy, grace, and correction. Being a mother has helped me to be more understanding, caring, forgiving, and treat others as I would like to be treated, especially young people. Now, another mother said, my experience as a mom is an honorable one. I learned that having a terrible toddler gives you a tolerable teenager. Anybody can relate to that? My daughter has been very cooperative and generous. We have become very good friends, and with everything we stop to ask the Lord for guidance. Certainly, we can say He's leading our lives. Now, this is about a single mom who said, the daughter of a single mom said, my mom was not only an angel, but also what you would call a magician. I can relate to that. I had nice clothes, was able to go to school, including college, and never had to drop out because of finances. You would never know there was not a father in the picture. Apart from material provision, my mother provided the training, not only in societal behavior, but also to put God first. She instilled in me the habit of personal devotion, which I instilled in my children, and who now have instilled in their children. And this is from an adoptive mother who says, I don't feel like I'm an adoptive mother. I have known my two beautiful daughters all their lives, and raising them have been nothing but sheer joy. They are everything that a mother could hope for in a daughter. The bond we share is unsurpassed. This just goes to show that you don't have to be a biological mother to be a true mother. Even the children of adoptive mothers rose up and called them blessed. Now, this is a daughter of the adoptive mother who says, I have a loving adoptive mom. I don't even feel like I was adopted, and my mother has never made me feel like I was not a biological child. She loves me unconditionally, and we're very close. I've never been in need of anything. She and my dad made sure I had everything I needed. She has given me all the love she has. She's my biggest supporter, and I love her endlessly. After hearing all this, like Isaiah, I said, woe is me. And so I asked my son, my older son, to tell me what he thought about me as a role model in his life. I even asked him to put it in writing, so he texted it to me. He said, one thing about it is that outside of spirituality and God, you always put your kids first. You have made sacrifice after sacrifice to ensure that your role as a parent, but as a mother specifically, has been fulfilled. You fed us and taught us how to fish. You made sure you took care of all the steps to better yourself, as well as to make sure that you're in a position to take care of the things you take care of and to provide more than the bare minimum. So we have established that a mother is not limited to being a woman. A mother is not limited to being a woman who gives birth to a child, but can also be a woman who never gave birth at all or never gave birth to the specific child or children she is raising. We heard some priceless testimonies or insights of motherhood, both from the beneficiaries and the benefactors. We heard from single moms, moms that were married, and adoptive mom. We also established that mothers have some great qualities, so much so that they fit the description of individuals we commonly refer to as angels. However, these were just to establish the eligibility for the awesome privilege and responsibility that come with their role. You see, angels are not just beautiful individuals with great character traits. Angels are God's messengers. As we see in Luke chapter 1, verse 11 to verse 20, it was an angel who appeared with great character to Zacharias to announce the birth of John. 6 months later, in verses 26 to 33 of Luke chapter 1, the angel Gabriel appeared unto Mary to announce the birth of Jesus. In Matthew 1, verse 20, when Joseph was thinking of putting away with Mary privately because of her pregnancy out of wedlock, it was an angel that appeared to him in a dream and told him that that which was conceived in Mary was of the Holy Ghost. In Daniel chapter 8, verse 60, when Daniel was baffled by his vision, the angel Gabriel was sent to make him understand his vision. And in chapter 9, verse 21, it was said of the angel Gabriel that he came to give Daniel skill and understanding. So, having said this, let's look at the real purpose of Christian mothers. In some parts of the island, when someone needs guidance in a specific situation, there's a popular saying, Lord, put a hand, send a man, or come yourself. God knew he was going to need some helpers here on earth. So instead of coming himself every time we call, he deputized mothers to be immediate answers in many situations. The ideal family, as God designed it, is made up of father, mother, and children, which is described as a nuclear family. But as the world is today, there is a gap between the real and the ideal. According to the Kids Count Data Center, as of 2020, statistics from the U.S. Census Bureau has shown that 35.9% of children in North Carolina are living in single-parent families. Prior to this update, in 2019, in North Carolina demography said 22.2% of the households in North Carolina were headed by a single mother, which accounted for 169,396 households. Wouldn't you say that's a lot of single there's a lot of single mothers out there? So mothers, whether your households fall under the ideal or the real, we still have the responsibility of building God's kingdom. Now, Servant of the Lord in Adventist Home, page 235, paragraph 2, and we'll also look at a quote on page 231, paragraph 3, says, the mother is God's agent to Christianize her family. She is to exemplify biblical religion, showing how its influence is to control us in its everyday duties and pleasures, teaching her children that by grace alone can they be saved, through faith, which is a gift of God. This constant teaching as to what Christ is to us and to them, his love, his goodness, his mercy, revealed in the great plan of redemption, will make a hallowed, sacred impress on the heart. Other quote, the queen of the home. The king upon his throne has no higher task than the mother. The mother is queen of her household. She has the power of molding her children's character that they may be fitted for the higher, immortal life. An angel could not ask for a higher mission. For in doing so, she's doing the work, doing service for God. Let her only realize the high character of her task, and it will inspire her with courage. Let her realize the worth of her work, and put on the whole armor of God, that she may resist the temptation to conform to the world's standard. Her work is for time and eternity. She goes on further to say that the mother is the queen of the home, and the children are her subjects. So children, listen carefully. She is to rule her household wisely in the dignity of her motherhood. Her influence is in the home is to be paramount, her word, law. If she's a Christian under God's control, she will command the respect of her children. Tell your children exactly what you require of them, and let them understand that your word must be obeyed. Thus you're training them to respect the commandments of God, which plainly declare, thou shalt not. That is Counsels, Parent, Teacher, and Student, page 111. Now, the mother is the queen of the home, so let's take a look at her subjects, which are the children. Now, according to child guidance, we're looking at a few quotes on page 194, paragraph 2, and backing up to page 191, paragraph 1. And 193, paragraph 2. So I'll just read the three quotes together. The foundation is laid in the first 3 years. Mothers, be sure you properly discipline your children during the first 3 years of their lives. Do not allow them to form their wishes and desires. The mother must be mind for her child. The first 3 years is the time in which you bend the tiny twig. Mothers should understand the importance attaching to this period. It is then that the foundation is laid. Early childhood is the most important period. Too much importance cannot be placed on early training of children. The lessons that a child learns during the first 7 years of life have more to do with forming his character than all that he will learn in future years. From babyhood, the character of the child is to be molded and fashioned in accordance with the divine plan. Virtues are to be instilled into his opening mind. Children are like a sponge when they are young, so that's the time to really train them. Okay, now, the time to establish good habits, as we said, is really in the earlier years, and the spirit of prophecy says that the earlier in life that one contracts hurtful habits, the more firmly they will hold their victim to slavery. If correct and virtuous habits are formed in youth, they will generally mark the course of the possessor through life. In most cases, it will be found that those who later in life reverence God and honor the right learned that lesson before there was time for the world to stamp sin on their soul. Those of mature age are generally insensible to new impressions as is a hardened rock, but youth is impressionable. In Jamaica, they always say that it's easier to train a tree while it's young, to bend a tree, but when it's old, it will break. So this is the time to train them. Now, traditionally, fathers and husbands were the ones that went out to work and provided materially for their families, leaving the mothers and wives to care for the home and the children. However, this has changed to a great extent over the years, and more women are going out to work, whether they're single mothers or whether they have the support of a spouse. Notwithstanding the responsibility of mothers to care for their children physically, mentally, and more than all spiritually has remained unchanged. Now, in an article by Kim Parker titled "Women More Than Men Adjust Their Careers for Family Life," I quote, "For working parents in the US, the challenge of juggling careers and family life continues to be a front burner issue, one that is being recognized as a growing number of employers have adopted family-friendly policies such as paid leave. But while few Americans want to see a return of traditional roles of women at home and men in the workplace, one reality persists. Women most often are the ones who adjust their schedules and make compromises when the needs of children and other family members collide with work. New Research Center data show. In a 2013 survey, we found that mothers were more likely than fathers to report experiencing significant career interruptions in order to attend to their family needs. While women represent nearly half of the US workforce, they still devote more time than men on average to housework and childcare, and fewer hours to paid work, although the gap is narrowed significantly over time. Among working parents or children younger than 18, mothers in 2013 spent an average of 14.2 hours per week on housework compared to the fathers' 8.6, and mothers spent 10.7 hours per week actively engaged in childcare compared to fathers' 7.2 hours. End of quote. So now, even more recently, as we have listened to the news, especially during the pandemic, during the lockdown, it was really the mothers that were leaving the workforce in droves and who have been spending taking a long time to get back into the workforce because of childcare issues. So mothers, let's talk a little bit more about the responsibility that God has entrusted to you using the blueprint that He has provided. So we'll talk a little bit about the role of the mother in terms of correction. The Spirit of Prophecy says, and counsels of parents, teachers, and students, page 14, administer the rule of the home within wisdom and love, not with a rod of iron. Children respond with willing obedience to the rule of love. Commend your children whenever you can. Make their lives as happy as possible. Remember that children need not only reproof and correction, but encouragement and commendation, the pleasant sunshine of kind words. For a parent that might say, well, this is a generation of vipers and you need to be tough with them. Or if you're from Jamaica, you might say, some of these men is like tick broken on their ears. Literal translation, some of these children, it's like a piece of stick broken their ears. And the meaning is, some of these children are very stubborn. So let's see what the councils say, how we can discipline them. Before we get to the scripture, sometimes we tend to pronounce doom and gloom on some children because they are not so well behaved. But here is what the servant of the Lord says in counsels to parents, teachers, and students. There are some children who need more patient discipline and kindly training than others. They have received a legacy, uncompromising traits of character, and because of this, they need more sympathy and love. They have received as a legacy uncompromising traits of character, and because of this, they need more sympathy and love. By persevering labor, these wayward ones may be prepared for the work of the master. They may possess undeveloped character powers, which, when aroused, will enable them to fill places far in advance of those from whom more was expected. Now, as one minister said, God called us to catch the fish rather, not to gut it and clean it. That's his job. So let us not condemn the children when they're not so well behaved, but let us pray to God and help us to guide their ways. Now, if as parents, mothers especially, if we do what is required of us, God will take care of the rest. It is understandable that punishment might be a necessary part of discipline, but this should be administered in love. As you see on the screen, I know you've read it already, if you can see this properly. This is from the Living Bible, and it says, "And you have quite forgotten the encouraging words God spoke to you, his child. He said, 'My son, don't be angry when the Lord punishes you. Don't be discouraged when he has to show you where you were wrong. For when he punishes you, it proves that he loves you. When he whips you, it proves you are really his child. Let God train you, for he's doing what any loving father does for his children. Whoever heard of the son who was never corrected? If God doesn't punish you when you need it, as other fathers punish their sons, then it means that you aren't really God's son at all, and you don't really belong in his family. Since we respect our fathers here on earth, though they punish us, should we not all the more cheerfully submit to God's training that we can begin really to live? Our earthly fathers trained us for a few brief years, doing the best for us that they knew how. But God's correction is always right and for our best good, that we may share his holiness. Being punished isn't enjoyable while it is happening. It hurts. But afterwards, we can see the result of quiet growth in grace and character. Now, the Lord loves whom he chastens or corrects. Actually, if you really don't care about somebody, you wouldn't really care about what they do. You wouldn't seek to correct them. So indeed, correction is a very big sign of love. Okay, so moving along. Servant of the Lord says in Counsels of Parents, Teachers, and Students, page 116 over into 117, says the work of breaking the will is contrary to the will of Christ. The will of the child must be guided and directed. Now, the mother might ask, shall I then not punish my child? She says whipping may be necessary when other resorts fail. Yet, she should not use a rod, if possible, to avoid doing so. But if mild measures prove insufficient, punishment that will bring the child to his senses should in love be administered. Frequently, one such correction will be enough for a lifetime to show the child that he does not hold the lines of control. And when this step becomes necessary, the child should be seriously impressed with the thought that this is not done for the gratification of the parent or to indulge in arbitrary authority, but for the child's own good. He should be taught that every fault uncorrected will bring unhappiness to himself and will displease God. Under such discipline, children will find their greatest happiness in submitting their wills to the will of their Heavenly Father. And it's also said in Counsels of Parents, Teachers, and Students, never correct a child in anger. An exhibition of passion on your part will not cure the child's evil temper. That is the time of all times that you should act with humility and patience and prayer. This is the time to kneel down with the children and ask the Lord for pardon. And of course, sometimes there's going to be the clash of the wills, that stubborn will of the child. And of course, sometimes the children get it from the parents too. So, child is stubborn, mother is stubborn, and then we have a clash there. But Sister White says that She will not look upon his will as something that must be broken. There are times when the determination of the mother meets the determination of the child, when the firm, matured will of the mother meets the unreasoning will of the child, and when either the mother rules because of her advantage of age and experience, or there is a ruling of the older will by the younger, undisciplined will of the child. At such times, there is need of great wisdom, for by wise management, by stern compulsion, the child may be spoiled. By unwise management and by stern compulsion, the child may be spoiled for his life and the next. By its lack of wisdom, everything may be lost. Now, if this crisis should happen, this is the guidance that we get from the Spirit of Prophecy. We say, this is a crisis that should seldom be permitted to come, both for mother and child. This is a crisis that should seldom be permitted to come, for both mother and child will have a hard struggle. Great care should be shown to avoid such an issue, but once such an issue is entered into, the child must be led to yield to the superior will of the parent. The mother is to keep her words under perfect control. There is to be no loud-voiced commands. Nothing will be done that will develop a defiant spirit in the child. The mother must study how to deal with him in such a way that it will be drawn to Jesus. She must pray in faith that Satan will not be victor over the child's will. The heavenly angels are watching the scene. Now, as I mentioned earlier about God, mothers being assigned as God's helper, this is what the Spirit of Prophecy says in Child Guidance, page 12. It says the mother must realize that God is her helper, that love is her success, her power. If she's a wise Christian, she will not attempt to force the child into submission. She will pray, and as she prays, she will be conscious of a renewal of spiritual life within herself. And she will see that at the same time, the power that is working in her is also working in the child. And the child, in the place of being compelled, is led and grows gentler, and the battle is gained. Each kindly thought, each patient action, each word of wise restraint, is like apples of gold in pictures of silver. Mother has gained the victory, more precious than language can express. She has renewed the light and increased experience. The true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world, has subdued her will. There is peace after the storm, like the shining of the sun after the rain. Now, we talk about children being too young to punish, for you to punish them, but Eli is a great example of that. And as Sister White said in Child Guidance, page 32, paragraph 2, Eli did not manage his household according to God's rule for family government. He followed his own judgment. The fond father overlooked the faults and sins of his sons in their childhood, flattering himself that after a while they would outgrow their evil tendencies. Many are now making similar mistakes. They think they know a better way of training their children, rather than that which God has given His Word. They foster wrong tendencies in them, urging as an excuse, they're too young to be punished. Wait till they become older and can be reasoned with. Thus, wrong habits are left to strengthen until they become second nature. Children grow up without restraint, with traits of character that are lifelong curse to them and are liable to be reproduced in others. Of course, it is our children that grow up and have children of their own, and they do influence other people in their lives. Well, mothers, sometimes you feel that your job is a thankless job, but it is a very honorable one. You don't want to be a very submissive parent, so it's okay if they think you're tough. As the servant of the Lord said, that there's no greater curse upon households than to allow the youth to have their own way. When parents regard every wish of their children and indulge them in what they know is not for their good, the children lose respect for their parents, all regard for the authority of God or man, and are led captive at the will of Satan. Now the story is told of a man who was sentenced to death, and his last wish was granted to him, and that was to speak to his mother. Now he pretended he was going to whisper something in her ear, so she leaned over to hear what he had to say. But instead, he bit off her ear, and he told her, if you had corrected me when you were raising me, instead of allowing me to do everything I wanted, I would not be here today. So mothers, be careful when you allow your children to go uncorrected. Now, earlier I shared some insights into, one of our mothers of Zion. She said her children should not just come home and grab their meals, go to their room, but participate in the preparation of the meal. She also shared that them participating in grocery shopping is also training for them. So here is what the servant of the Lord said in Counsels of Parent, Teacher, and Children, 122, 123, and another quote from 145 over to 146. So I'll quickly go through these little synopses of these. Now it says, in the home school, children should be taught how to perform the practical duties of everyday life. When they're still young, the mother should give them simple tasks to do each day. It will take longer for her to teach them how than it would to do it herself. But let her remember that she is to lay for their character building the foundation of helpfulness. Let her remember that the home is a school in which she is the head teacher. It is hers to teach her children how to perform the duties of the household quickly and skillfully. As early in life as possible, they should be trained to share the burdens of the home. From childhood, boys and girls should be taught to bear still heavier burdens intelligently, helping in the work of the family firm. From the mother, the children are to learn habits of neatness, thoroughness, and dispatch. To allow a child to take an hour or two to do a piece of work that could be easily done in half an hour is to allow them for dilatory or slow, tardy habits. Habits of industrial thoroughness will be an untold blessing to the youth in the larger school life, and I would say in the work life too when you become an adult. Mothers should guard against training their children to be dependent and self-absorbed. Never give them cause to think that they are the center and that everything must revolve around them. The mother should be a teacher, and home a school, where every child receives his first lessons, and the lessons should include habits of industry. Mothers, let the little ones play in the open air, let them listen to the songs of the birds, and learn the love of God as expressed in His beautiful words. Now, simplicity is something that Sister White talks about in terms of raising our children. He says that in Counsels of Parent, Teacher, and Children, he says, those children are most attractive who are natural and unaffected. It is not wise to give children special notice and repeat their clever sayings before them. Vanity should not be encouraged by praising their looks, their words, or their actions, nor should they be dressed in an expensive or showy manner. This encourages pride in them and awakens envy in the hearts of their companions. Teach your children that true adorning is not outward. And as Sister White quoted in 1 Peter 3, verse 3 and 4, it says, whose adorning, let it not be outward adorning of plaiting the hair and wearing of gold or putting on a harp, but let it be the hidden man of the heart in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price. Now, Peter was not saying that you shouldn't comb your hair or dress nicely. But he was saying that not be the focus, but let the meek and quiet spirit be that ornament that is incorruptible and that is of great price in the sight of God. Now, the little ones should be educated in childlike simplicity. They should be trained to be content with small, helpful duties and pleasures and experiences natural to the years. The children should not be forced into a precocious or advanced maturity. They should retain as long as possible the freshness and grace of their early lives. Sometimes the children of today, their schedules are busier than many adults because they have to be going from school to this, to that, because the parents push them to be ahead of the game. Sometimes just letting them be children is golden. Okay, so this is the part that we really want you mothers to think of yourselves not just as the person who does the cleaning, cooking, and washing, and that your role is not important, because your work is greater than you think. And Sister White, in doing a graphic comparison of your work versus, say, the work of fathers or husbands, she says in Counsels of Parent, Teachers and Children, page 144, and she also has some posts in Adventist Home 232 and 233. The mother's work often seems to her an unimportant service. It is a work that is rarely appreciated. Others know little for many cares and burdens. Her days are occupied with a round of little duties, all calling for patient effort, for self-control, for tact, wisdom, and self-sacrificing love. Yet she cannot boast of what she has done as any great achievement. She has only kept things running in the home smoothly. Often weary and perplexed, she has tried to speak kindly to the children, to keep them busy and happy, and to guide their little feet into the right path. She feels that she has accomplished nothing, but it is not so. Heavenly angels watch the careworn mother, noting the burdens she carries each day by day. Her name might not have been in the world, but it is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. A graphic comparison of values. The mother seldom appreciates her own work and frequently sets so low an estimate upon her labor that she regards it as domestic drudgery. She goes through the same round day after day, week after week, with no special marked results. She cannot tell at the close of the day the many little things she has accomplished. Placed beside her husband's achievement, she feels like she has done nothing worth mentioning. Now, fathers, this is not my words, this is Sister White, and we love you dearly. But here she says, the father frequently comes in with self-satisfied air and proudly recounts what he has accomplished through the day. His remarks show that now he must be waited upon by the mother, for she has not done much except take care of the children, cook the meals, keep the house in order. She has not acted the merchant, water or soul. She has not acted the farmer in tilling the soil. She has not acted the mechanic. Therefore, she has nothing to do to make her weary. He criticizes and censors and dictates as though he was Lord of the creation. And this is all the more trying for the wife and mother, because she has become weary at her post of duty during the day, and yet she cannot see what she has done, and is really disheartened. Could the veil be withdrawn, and father and mother see as God sees the work of the day, and see how his infinite eye compares the work of one with that of the other, they would be astonished at the heavenly revelation. The father would view his labors in a more modest light, while the mother would have a new courage and energy to pursue her labor with wisdom, perseverance, and patience. Now she knows its value. While the father has been dealing with the things which must perish and pass away, the mother has been dealing with developing minds and characters, working not only for time, but for eternity. Now, the work of the mother is described as holy. As Sister White says in Adventist homepage 235 and also in 239, says no work is greater or holier. If married men go into work, leaving their wives to care for the children at home, the wife and mother is doing fully as great and important a work as the husband and father. Although one is in the missionary field and another is a home missionary, whose cares and anxieties and burdens frequently far exceed those of the husband and father, her work is a solemn and important one. Husband is in the open missionary field and may receive the honors of man, while the home toiler may receive no earthly credit for her labor. But if she works for the best interests of her family, seeking to fashion their characters after the divine model, the recording angel writes her name as one of the greatest missionaries in the world. God does not see things as man's finite vision views them. Let every mother feel that her moments are priceless. Her work will be tested in the solemn day of account. Then it will be found that many of the failures and crimes of men and women have resulted from ignorance and neglect of those whose duty was to guide their childish feet in the right way. Then it will be found that many who have blessed the world with the light of genius and truth and holiness owe the principles that were the mainspring of their influence and success to a praying Christian mother. Now, it is not only in perfect situations that we can learn lessons. God knew that, and so, as He inspired the men to write the Bible, He inspired them also to write of people that were not so perfect. Let's take a look at, say, Rebecca, who assisted her son Jacob, to orchestrate one of the largest schemes of deception so he could receive the blessing from Isaac that rightfully belonged to his brother Esau. In today's world, Jacob would be charged with identity theft, and Rebecca would be charged as a co-conspirator. Jacob also suffered the consequence of his sin, and so he himself became a victim of deceit by his uncle Laban, who tricked him into marrying Leah instead of Rachel. Now he wrote about Sarah, who encouraged Abraham to lie with her handmaid, Hagar, so they could have a son, which of course was not the will of God. God does not need us to help him. He's perfectly capable of fulfilling his will in our lives. So, for the mothers who have been trying to have a child and having some difficulties, just wait on the Lord. To this day, the lineage of Ishmael and Isaac are unable to coexist peacefully. Now we talk about the far-reaching influence of a godly mother, and we're wrapping up shortly. Now, before I go into that, the story is told of a mother who would bake in 2 small tins. She has a nice big oven at home, but she would always bake in 2 small tins. And I think about a 10-year-old daughter asked her why. And she said, that's the way my mother has done it all my life. So the young daughter called her grandmother and asked, Grandma, Mother bakes in 2 small tins, and she said, that's the way you did it. Why did you do it? Grandmother laughed and said, oh, silly. I did it because my oven was too small. So sometimes we see parents do things, we might not necessarily question them, but we learn from them. So parents, we are, especially our mothers, we are role models for our children, and you might not directly tell them or teach them something, but they're observing you. So the far-reaching influence of a godly mother, and this we will talk about Hannah, and in the Spirit of Prophecy, Child Guidance, 197 verse 1, the servant of the Lord says, Hannah's reward, opportunities of inestimable worth, interest, infinitely precious, are committed to every mother. During the first 3 years of Samuel's life, his mother carefully taught him to distinguish between good and evil. By every familiar object surrounding him, she sought to lead his thoughts to the Creator. In fulfillment of her vow to give her son to the Lord, with great self-denial, she placed him under the care of Eli, the high priest, to be trained for the service of the house of God. His early training led him to choose to maintain his Christian integrity. What a reward was Anna's, and what an encouragement to faithfulness is her example. Now, regardless of the fact that Moses grew up in Pharaoh's palace, with access to the highest level of education in the land, and everything he could possibly want or need, it was the first 12 years of his life being raised and taught by his biological mother that prepared him for the awesome task that was to be laid upon him, leading Israel. And Sister White actually says that the moments of crisis, the whole future of the life of Moses, the great mission which he fulfilled as leader of Israel, testifies to the importance of the work of Christian mothers. There is no other work that can equal this. Parents should direct the instruction and training of their children while they're young, to the end that they may be Christians. They are placed in our care to be trained, not as the heirs to the throne of an earthly empire, but as kings unto God, to reign through unending ages. We also read in Ruth chapter 1, verse 6, where Naomi said that, entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God, my God. The same Naomi was a godly mother-in-law. When her sons married, she did not lose her sons. She actually gained 2 daughters. She treated her sons' wives as if they were her own daughters, and hence Ruth refused to leave her even after her husband died. She decided that wherever Naomi lived, that's where she was going to be living, and she was now a permanent part of Naomi's physical family as well as her spiritual family. And of course, you know how the story ends. So, just to summarize, we have learned that there's no greater curse on the household than to allow the youth to have their own way. We have heard that the children should be taught to perform practical duties of everyday life. Children should not be forced to advance maturity, but should retain as long as possible the freshness and grace of their early years. Children are not too young to be disciplined. Their characters are formed in the first 7 years of life. Never punish children when you're angry. Breaking the will of a stubborn child is contrary to the will of God. A child's will is to be guided. Motherhood is not limited to the ability to give birth. Mothers are God's agent to Christianize the family. The mother is the queen of the home, and her children should not regard her as their slaves to wait upon them. Her influence in the home is to be paramount, her word law. And most importantly, we learned that no work is greater or holier than that of a mother. Her work is to develop minds and character, not only for time, but also for eternity.
Amen.